Hello guys, and welcome to another video. Now recently we've had quite a few Path of Exile 2 interviews where prominent community members such as Kriparian, Ghazi and the likes have been putting the important questions straight to the developers, and these interviews have been able to shine a light on a lot of interesting changes or features coming in Path of Exile 2, and even some things for Path of Exile 1 as well. I have to say that I've become a lot more interested in Path of Exile 2 with every interview that passes, because you can just gain so much insight from the topics that are discussed here, and you're very much reassured that PoE 2's development is in great hands. But PoE 2 is still a ways off just yet, with the beta scheduled for June, and the full release likely not until the end of 2024 at the very earliest. So for me, the focus is still very much Path of Exile 1, and the most recent of these interviews was conducted last night by Zizaran, and he interviewed Jonathan and Hrishi of Grinding Gear Games, and in this interview we actually got some juicy information about some upcoming changes in Path of Exile 1. Check it out.
In PoE 2, could we expect to see more things itemized, like the Ashling Slam, and things that people are currently trying to buy as services from other people?
Well, this is really I guess it's really tied to PoE 1, because I don't know if that's mechanic in particular.
Well, no, it does matter in PoE 2. Basically, yes, we understand the facts. In general, we are trying very hard to avoid any situation where where a thing that someone would want to trade is not itemized.
Yeah, and to specifically address Ashling Slam, that I believe there's some changes coming with that in the next patch as well.
I think there are a bunch of things getting itemized in the next PoE 1 update.
Very cool.
Yeah. So I mean that's the thing we're very much aware of.
So even though I haven't covered it specifically on my channel, all of the drama surrounding TFT recently has likely forced GGG to quickly implement these changes, and honestly, they're great changes for all parties. The answer here is quite vague, but I think we can begin to imagine what sorts of things will be itemized in 3.24. So let's start off with the topic of discussion here, which was the Ashling Slam from Betrayal. This craft removes a random modifier and adds a veiled modifier, and this one is most definitely going to be itemized in 3.24, so you'll be able to take the craft as an item just like a Chaos Orb or another type of currency, and you can save it for later or trade it to another player, and that's just a massive quality of life improvement for everyone. I'm not sure why this wasn't done sooner, but better late than never. This is going to be a great change. And so I think we can expect that most of the Betrayal crafts will also likely have the option to be itemized as well. For example, things like the Hillock quality craft for armor, weapons, and flasks, those are very likely to be itemized. The craft that allows you to turn a rare amulet into a talisman via Jorgen in Research, that will probably be itemized as well. And I also expect all of Hrishi's crafts to be itemized as well. That's the socket reforged crafts in Transport for colours, number of sockets and number of links, and of course the white sockets craft there as well when he's in Research. One thing that will be interesting to see is if you can itemize any version of these crafts, or whether it will only allow you to itemize tier 4. For example, having a separate itemized version for Hrishi's white socket crafts for the different tiers might be a bit confusing, and a bit annoying if you're playing trade and you want to kind of try and trade for the tier 4 version, which is 1 to 6 white sockets. Well, you know, there might be a scam opportunity there for someone to try and trade you a tier 1 or tier 2 version if the item looks very similar, and it's going to be kind of annoying to have to check it. So we'll see if they actually limit it to tier 4 only. Then you're always incentivized to rank up your Betrayal members to rank 3 before entering the Mastermind encounter. That's kind of already the case. In most scenarios, you kind of want the tier 4 craft, but we'll see how they go about implementing that. They might make it so that you're only able to itemize tier 4 version of those crafts. And Tora's Gem Experience craft, that will likely just drop as a Facetter's Lens of the appropriate amount of experience now. That makes sense. And actually, now that I think of it, the Hrishi crafts for socket colours, number of sockets, and links in Transport will probably just drop as Chromes, Jewelers, and Fusings, depending on which tier it is. So if you don't want to actually use it then and there, you'll get a pile of currency instead. And I suppose they could itemize things like the Guff crafts for spamming currencies on an item, but I would guess that these sort of things, as well as the timed traps and things like that, they'll probably stay as they are. So Betrayal is one of the big ones. Those crafts being itemized is going to be very welcome of a change. Not just for Trade League either. I mainly play solo self-found and I'm really excited about this change. Being able to store those crafts for later use is just huge quality of life improvement that can't be overlooked. That's going to be amazing. But aside from Betrayal, what other things can we expect to be itemized? We already have itemized incursion temples. The interesting thing here is whether they decide to actually go one step further and allow you to itemize the actual crafts that are gained from those temples. Things like the double corruption altar, the double corrupt gem craft, the altar of sacrifice. I would expect that they won't do this because they probably want to maintain the way that you actually gain those crafts, which is that you still need to run the temple and make it to the particular room to gain access to the craft. And I think that it makes more sense if it stays that way. You know, you can always have the option in a Trade League scenario to be able to trade for the temple that has the craft you want, but you still need to actually make it to the room, and that's why a lot of those rooms apply nasty global modifiers to the temple, like minus max resistance, so that will probably stay as is. Other than Betrayal and Incursion crafts, I don't think there's much else that needs to be itemized, but just this change alone is going to be so impactful. As I mentioned, I mostly play self-found, so I don't interact with TFT at all, but I do get the impression that this sort of change will go a very long way to alleviating some of that pressure on the reliance of those sorts of services. And this of course doesn't fix everything that TFT is used for, but it's definitely a nice start. And there's some other info here as well that was discussed in these interviews, and I'll have another video up in the coming days for that. But I just wanted to do a bit of discussion on this because I feel that this one is a fairly small change that is going to have a massive impact on the game as a whole, and a positive one at that, so that's going to be great. And did you guys watch Zizaran's full interview with Jonathan and Hrishi? Let me know what you guys thought of it by commenting below. And thanks for watching this video. As always, stay tuned and stay safe.